Hey guys, so for the Sports Performance and Training Module 5 assignment, the two core exercises that I decided to go through are simply the sit-up or the straight leg sit-up and the oblique cable or band hold, which will lead into the rotation, and then the med ball rotational pass. Before I demonstrate these exercises, I wanted to talk about why it's important to progress core strength and core training within an athlete's program. Simply the fact of the matter is, if you stick with stabilization exercises, just like with any other body part, they're going to get easier for the athlete as they get more advanced, get stronger in their training program. So that's the most simplest reason. From an athletic standpoint, stabilization exercises are great and are definitely necessary in an athlete's program. But when you think about it, when they're doing athletics, going back to that, being specific in the training of who you're training and what their needs are, you're never in a sport where you're holding in a position that's similar to a plank. When you're just sitting still, keeping the core braced, standing still without much external forces on you or not being in an unstable environment. When you're an athlete, you're always moving and you're always performing functional movements within your sports. So you got to learn from your strength programs to properly use the core both in strength and power movements, doing athletic movements. You're not going to be standing still when you're playing hockey. You got to learn how to use your core, whether it's shooting a hockey puck or swinging a tennis racket or throwing a football. You have to mimic motions similar to those in your strength programs. So again, the stabilization, it's all necessary. It's definitely essential and it's beneficial in an athlete's program in developing their core and their overall functional capabilities. But you can't just stick with those. You got to take them through their strength and their power phases to really progress their performance levels and progress them as an athlete. So to start off, I'm going to start on the ground. The first exercise we got is the sit-up. So for the stabilization piece of this exercise, I would first start by having the client do a sit-up hold or a crunch hold. And this is really easily done. All you're going to have them do is start off on the ground. Nice and flat, like so. You're here. For a beginner, have them start with their knees up. Help them keep that back nice and tight. Their lower back nice and tight to the ground. All you're going to do is simply start. A proper cue I like to tell them is to untuck their chin. A lot of times clients will tuck their chin in. Untuck their chin and elevate the shoulders and hold right here. And just tell them to focus on their breathing, looking up at the sky, their ceiling, keeping the core braced, navel's tucked in or sucked in. And you're keeping that pressure on the lower back, not letting it arch up. That's the most simple of the sit-up exercise. That would be the stabilization piece, and that would be what I would start with a beginner or a younger or elderly athlete. To progress that, I would simply move into a sit-up, or more specifically, a straight leg sit-up is what I prefer with my athletes. And this is done just like the name says, with your legs completely straightened. I like the toes flexed forward, feet spread apart, and you're going to tell the client, as you're sitting up, to flatten out the back. So it's going to look like this. Good. Give you guys a better angle. See here? Sitting up, flattening the back at the top. One more time. So you don't need to open and arch the chest, but a lot of times what clients will do is as they're performing their sit-up, they crunch forward, bending the spine, putting it in an unnatural position, and you don't want this. And it's actually harder, and you're using the core more if you sit up completely straight, straightening the back as you come up. So that would be what I consider the strength portion of the sit-up. For today's purposes, I don't have a med ball, so I'm using a basketball, but in a power movement for the sit-up, one popular exercise I like to do is a straight leg sit-up with a med ball, throwing and catching it. So this is done with a personal trainer in front of you. I like to typically toss the client the med ball first just to let them see what the weight feels like. The trainer's going to start with the ball. Client starts just like the regular straight leg setup position. Toes are flexed towards you. Feet are spread out. Sitting up, flat back, arms up. You're going to catch the ball as the trainer throws it to you and eccentrically control it down. So you're going to catch and slowly control the ball down until you finished and you're ended up in your straight leg setup position with the med ball overhead. Now, as you come down here, you don't want to stop the momentum. You want to keep it going. Let the med ball fall backwards and behind your head until it touches the ground. And right from here, you're exploding up using the momentum of throwing the med ball overhead to your trainer. Just like that. So again, you're here. Med ball's coming behind my head. I'm sitting up, throwing it. Finishing in a straight leg setup position. Now, that's one of my favorite power exercises because it really works the core eccentrically. If you really focus on catching that med ball, throwing the med ball almost over the client's head, making them stop it, and then controlling it down as the med ball comes back, then throw it back over the head. Great power movement. Clients will really feel that one, especially when they catch the med ball and they come down eccentrically. For the second set of core exercises for this module assignment, I've chosen the cable, or for today's purposes, a band cable or band oblique hold, or the Pallof hold, Pallof press, whatever you decide to call it. So this can be done with any cable at the gym, typically a light weight, or in this case I have a band. This would be just as good for a starter, or any athlete really. It's just as much resistance. So for the stabilization piece, first one, all you're doing, getting optimum tension on the band, shoulders are relaxed, arms are completely straight. I'm in a bent knee athletic position. If you stand up too straight, there's too much torque and it can kind of cause a little bit of lower back stiffness or pain when doing the exercises, especially for beginners or clients who aren't used to the drawing in maneuver or who don't have a stronger core. So again, we're here, bent knees, nice athletic stance, arms straight, shoulders aren't hiked up. I'm right here. And you tell the client to just relax the shoulders, use the core, draw in, suck that belly button in, and focus on your breathing. And from the lateral side, you're out here. Make sure the client isn't arching their back. If it looks like this, tell them to suck that belly button in, tuck those hips under, stay nice and straight. And another thing, when you're here, a lot of clients will lean like this, or they'll leave the cable or band out here, or they'll shift it that way. Make sure it's perfectly in line with that chest. If the client has to shift in any way, shape, or form, it's too heavy, the forms aren't good, lighten it up, start with the band, start light, have them hold it for a longer time if they think the weight is too easy. You don't want to play around with this one because, again, it can be a lot of uncomfortable torque if they're not using the core correctly to hold it still. Moving on to the strength piece of this exercise, all you're going to do is simply add a rotation to this. So while you're here, I usually like to superset the hold, isometric hold, with about 10 rotations at the end. So typically have them here, and I'll say 10 rotations. You want to focus on keeping the hips still, not rotating the hips, just moving the arms back and forth in a position so that when you're going backwards, there's still tension on this band. So you're here, my shoulders are relaxed again, I'm not up here, I'm down here, arms are straight, sucked in, controlling my hips, and it's just a slight upper body movement, and you're really going to feel this in the core, specifically the obliques. From a side view, again, I'm not anterior, I'm here, tucked in, controlling the hips, slightly moving with my upper body. A good cue I like to do for clients is simply just hold my hands out in either side of them to give them a range of where their hands should be moving. A lot of times clients will go too far out here and not bring enough back here. This portion going forward is a lot easier than controlling it behind them and then bringing it back. So provide that range of motion for them. Again, athletic stance, same thing as the first one, knees bent. If they're feeling like they have to shift, or they can't keep their hips still, or they can't bring it all the way back here, they have to keep their arms bent to move it. It's too heavy, lighten the load. For the last one of these exercises, for the power portion, we're just gonna do a med ball lateral throw. So again, same portion here. You're gonna add a little bit more rotation in the lower body here. Starting off with the med ball, I like to tell them to keep their arms straight. If they keep the arms bent, they're gonna feel it along their shoulders, maybe their arms, and the clients will typically bend their arms when doing this. Tell them to keep their arms straight, and it'll help them really isolate their core. Starting off here, I like to tell them to bring it a little bit lower and shoot it out directly at hip level. You can throw it off a wall, to a trainer, or just out to a field, sprint and catch it. Again, the power movements are really the movements that mimic an athlete's movements and functions when they're in their sports. So this is why it's important to go from the stabilization to the strength to the power and then all over again. The stabilization is their base. That's what's going to help them, teach them to use their core while they're breathing, while they're performing exercises. You know, the strength is just going to help them get their overall strength up in the core, be able to carry or handle more loads, more type of stress. And the power is what's going to work on that explosiveness and really just help the athlete learn how to use it when doing functional movements, full body movements, shooting a basketball, swinging a baseball bat, all those type of movements that require the power and velocity from that athlete. Thanks, guys.